Did you know you can ride the Ender Dragon? Did you know you can feed mobs until they explode? And these are 31 joke features that Mojang added to Minecraft. But first, the YouTube security guard bets me that no one can subscribe to the channel before this minecart reaches the top. So to prove them wrong, ride to that red button below. It's free, and it helps out a ton. Bedrock is finally breakable in survival. At least it was in this update. And if you were to take the time and get yourself to Haste 2 effect, you'd find that after 10.5 minutes, it's possible to break this with your empty hands. Which is basically the way you have to do it, because also in this update, you're not able to pick up any tools. Don't go near this chicken, because as of the 2.0 update, chickens were a neutral mob, and they would even attack the player if they started to look at them, almost like an Enderman would. But even if that was the case, the chicken still seems like a pretty easy mob to deal with, so what's the problem? Well, the issue is that, much like Zelda, these could spawn reinforcements to come after you, which is simultaneously horrifying and hilarious. If you were somehow able to beat the 1 block at a time update, you'd find out that after breaking all the end crystals in the game, or by resummoning the dragon, you'd be able to ride the boss just by punching it, which was capable of letting us do some pretty wild things over here in the overworld. Which is good, because normally when you ride a dragon in the overworld, it doesn't do much, so this is a welcome change of pace. And if you were to ride the Ender Dragon down into the void, you'd find that in this update, it's a lot more forgiving. Now, it teleports the player right up to build limit in the overworld, which is still gonna be hard to clutch, but you have a much higher chance of surviving if you're not instantly deleted in the Black Abyss. Do not fish in this update, because odd as it may seem, fishing in the Java Edition 20W14 Infinite would cause you to get an Elder Guardian instead of the regular fish. And as you can tell from this user's post, that's definitely a rude awakening. In the Love and Hugs update, you can no longer trade with villagers, but that doesn't mean they won't take your stuff. Since now, if you attempted to trade with a villager, it would then take the items and give you back a piece of paper that would thank you for your donation. And while that seems greedy, I'll remind you that charity is a good thing, which must also be why villagers would pick up any item or block that they found on the floor, which I think takes Lost and Found a bit too seriously. Did you know that you could ride a ghast? Well, kind of. Since in 2015, Mojang made it in such a way where you could get on a ghast, but you couldn't control it. And the same could be said about pigs, since there was no more carrot on a stick, so you couldn't choose where the pig wanted to go. Which is a bummer, but it turns out that without it, they're able to climb walls now, giving us the kind of spider pig that even Homer Simpson can appreciate. And if all that already sounded crazy enough, you haven't seen anything until you get on a horse. Or rather, a horse gets on you, since now the horses ride you instead. And I think this visual speaks for itself. Stop making your boats out of wood, but instead, make them out of obsidian. No joke, since Mojang thought wood was too fragile, they added in this new obsidian boat instead, which now has the capabilities to withstand anything that comes in its way. Though when it comes to buoyancy, it's not the best. The price you pay for safety, I guess. In this version, furnaces were completely unstable, and after too long of smelting, they could eventually explode and release all of their items like that. And while this would usually happen after smelting anywhere from 3 to 7 items in the furnace, it would be a guaranteed detonation if you used a piece of coal. So that might be a sign they gotta look for some cleaner energy. As is, lava would have been too dangerous for the Love and Hugs update, which is why everything you see around you has been changed from lava into liquid cheese. And don't worry, even though this cheese is molten, it's no longer gonna hurt any mobs or players in it. But it is still hot enough to burn your items and be used as a fuel for your furnace, which might be the most useful joke feature that Mojang's ever added in. This is a dropper block, and this is the flopper block. Since in this update, droppers were replaced with the much more popular flopper block, with an insanely useful feature where anything that you put in them would just come out as raw fish. How we don't have this in the base game, I have no clue. It seems like it's a real useful tool. With Soul Sand and Wither Skulls, we can get a wither, and with Pink Wool and a flower pot, we can get a friendly wither. Now, don't worry, even though this is classified as a hostile mob, it's not going to be hostile towards any other mobs in the game. And while it only has 1 head to start, if you feed it sugar, it'll eventually get the other 3 heads. And while you could kill it to get another star like the wither, I'd recommend leaving this around, because it has the ability to bone meal all surrounding blocks. And plus, come on, why would you want to kill something this cute? Mojang was sick of squids being a useless mob, so they fixed that. And now, the squid has the ability to fly around through the air, which is interesting, but it begs the question, does it make them any less useless? No, frankly, it just makes them harder to kill. But at least this means Mojang hasn't forgotten about them. If we shoot this barrel, nothing happens. But if we shoot an exploding barrel, I think you get the point. But that's not the only thing that'll set them off, because if you were to empty this barrel and leave nothing remaining inside, then it can also explode. But even with that hassle, you'll still want to check inside these, because naturally spawning barrels may even contain a crossbow named the BFC 9000. And this could have the multi-shot enchantment anywhere from level 1 to level 12, which alone would be insane, let alone the various armors and weapons that you can get inside as well. With the Java Edition Infinite Snapshot, we get a new biome type added in, and the whole point of this biome is efficiency, since inside, you're no longer going to find ores to mine, but rather they'll all just be replaced with veins of redstone components, which is a bummer if you want diamonds, but probably pretty good if you're mumbo jumbo. If you press the B key on your keyboard, Mojang added in a simple feature called Boss Mode, which sounds exciting, but actually what it would do is just pop up a screen of a Microsoft DOS workstation, and that way it could hide your screen in game in case the boss was nearby and you needed to hide that you were gaming. Pretty sneaky. I'll have to look out for this in the office. Do not wear this in Minecraft, since if you put on the Trendy Updates ankle monitor, this police monitoring device would stay worn on your boot slot. And if you're in survival, there's no luck at getting this off, which is a shame because while you're wearing it, it would apply the slowness 1 effect. And it would even start to display several messages if you got a certain amount of blocks away from spawn, or special messages like this if you got into the end or the nether. And really, when you start making the curse of binding look like a cakewalk, I think this feature's pretty bad. If you were to type in the cheat code NERD, using all 4 E's, then the game could spawn in this rather dashing creeper, which is to say just a regular creeper that's wearing a lab coat and glasses. And if you were to kill one of these new scientist creepers, it'll drop the 3D food item that when you interact with it, pops up a picture of the Mojang development team, making it a fun Easter egg. Instead of a helmet, try on these new Reality Vision goggles, since with these HoloLenses, you can put them on as you'd expect and get a new overlay to your player vision. And while wearing these, you would see a built-in mini-map that would fully render the surrounding area. And it could even keep track of your position while you're walking around the currently rendered chunks, which sounds useful, but you might want to take these off before you try to read any sign, since while wearing these, any text on the sign would just be replaced with the word obey. And that's totally not terrifying. In the 2.0 update, it was possible for blocks and mobs to have speech bubbles over their head, which is an odd feature for sure, but I think it's kind of hilarious that the world wants to talk it out. Though nowadays, if this were added in, we could probably just report the chat from the Ender Dragon and get it permanently banned to beat the game. Sounds like a speedrun to me. This here's the love meter. And don't worry about starving to death, because in the Love and Hugs update of 2015, Mojang removed the health bar and the hunger bar as well. And the way that you would fill up this meter is whenever the player came in contact with a mob. And that way, instead of hitting the zombie, the two of you hug it out and the meter increases. Which, if you finally increase the love meter all the way up to 8 lines of hearts, what you would unlock was a hidden mini-game called Minescreeper, a clone of the Microsoft-made Minesweeper, which seems like nothing more than a gag, but if you beat the mini-game, it would take you to the game's credits, and afterwards bring you right back to Minecraft, making for the weirdest way to beat the game for sure. Before you head to the nether, write out a written book and toss it through first, since that'll create this new funky portal. This feature, being part of the Infinite Minecraft update, allowed players to create portals leading to 2 billion new dimensions per seed, which sounds like a gimmick, but if you go through, you can actually find some really cool portals through this. And I'm kind of disappointed that those biomes don't exist in the game, even if it means you have to sift through a bunch of them that just look hideous. Did you know that you can craft netherite into stairs? Well, sure enough, if you go into the missing dimension of the Infinite Snapshot, you'll find this secret item hanging around. And this very item will have its special name, the swaggiest stairs ever, which I'm inclined to agree. And really, it just goes to show that while building a netherite beacon is a flex, having a staircase out of these is a whole other level. As of 2022, there's no longer an inventory in Minecraft, or at least that was the case in the 1 block at a time update. And now, instead of having to worry about inventory management, all of your blocks and items were turned into physical things that you could interact in the world. And that of course meant that we could only pick up 2 item slots at a time, one for each one of our hands. But blocks weren't the only thing that we could pick up, since if you got up close to a mob, you could also carry one of these around as well. And folks, just about all entities in the game could be picked up, whether that was friendly, neutral, or even hostile. And you could find that even different mobs would have special abilities depending on which one you're holding, almost creating its own meta to which one that you want to have on hand. In the April Fool's 2.0 update, it was the case that if you were to overfeed your pigs, cows, or sheep, they would continue to get fatter and fatter until eventually they would explode after their 10th time of eating. Oh, and you could also feed this mob, but let me explain what that is. See, prior to 1.6, this update did actually give us horses, although they were just retextured pigs and cows. And it's easy to see why they eventually went with Dr. Jark's model, because this would look ridiculous with horse armor. Here's how to walk in the ceiling in Minecraft. First, you're gonna pick up a pig, and then, when held, this will give you the ability to magnetically stick to the ceiling, which is definitely cool to see, but the only downside is that when you're holding the pig, it's impossible to grab onto any more blocks to build with. But then again, it's a joke feature, it's not meant to be that useful. You've heard of hardcore mode, but what about super hostile mode? Strange as it may seem, this is actually a difficulty that Mojang made themselves. And in this, it would spawn several charged creepers, full armor zombie, and even skeletons around you, just as soon as you took a chance by punching wood or crafting. And honestly, this sounds to me more like the custom game modes that Fundy makes than anything we'd ever see in the base game. But if you were able to play this version of the game and get to the end, that'd be more than impressive. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?